And there we have it. Tomorrow, I'm hosting a little holiday get-together and I'm making a brunch charcuterie board. If you're feeling like hosting, but also feeling kind of lazy, this one might just be the one for you. I like a nice combination of savory and sweet, homemade and store-bought, healthy and indulgent. I also like to do as much work in advance as I can so that all I have to do the morning of the get-together is assemble and pop the champagne. A brunch charcuterie board is a great celebration with which to end the holiday season or start the new year, and I'm going to show you how I make it today. Hello there, happy holidays. Welcome to my kitchen. I am on brunch prep duty today, prepping for a little holiday get together tomorrow. I'm offering brunch charcuterie, which is exactly like it sounds, a selection of sweet and savory, homemade and store-bought brunch foods, something for everyone. I'm starting with a couple of baked goods, making cinnamon snowflake pull-apart bread, as well as lemon rosemary scones. So first we're starting with snowflake bread. It's called that because if I do it right, it should look like the most delicious snowflake you've ever seen. The method is pretty traditional for a bread recipe all the way up until the end when we shape our snowflake and fill it. So today I'm taking it to just before the second proof and it's going to proof overnight in my fridge. First thing we need to do is assemble our bread dough. I have my KitchenAid mixer out today, but you can do this all by hand. I'm just going to take the help and have a mixer do the kneading for me. The ingredients, probably things you already have in your kitchen. Regular all-purpose flour, milk, butter, a couple of eggs. The sweetener we're going to use today is honey, salt, and some rapid rise yeast. I've warmed the milk up a little bit, both to activate the yeast, but also to melt the honey. And I also have warm butter. So I'm just going to start pouring into our mixing bowl. First the milk, then a couple tablespoons of honey. 1, 2. I'm going to toss in a little bit of salt and get those mixing just so the honey has a chance to dissolve a little bit. While our mixer's going, I'm going to crack a couple of eggs, add them one by one. And of course, I have to pay the egg tax. Egg tax has been paid, so I'm going to add the butter and our yeast. That's well incorporated, and still with the paddle attachment on, I'm going to add in our flour. This is just shy of 4 cups of flour. I may need a little bit more or a little bit less, so I'm going to not add all of it, but incorporate all but, I don't know, half a cup or so, and give it a mix and see what the dough looks like. Still super sticky, some more flour. When this starts to come together in a ball, I'm going to switch out our paddle for our dough hook attachment. So do you hear how the mixer sounds a little bit different there? That means that our dough is starting to come together in a ball. So if you couldn't see it forming, though it's very clear from looking at it, you can also rely on the way the mixer sounds a little bit. Dough hook goes on, roll back up. And I'm going to knead it a few times before I set it and forget it, just to make sure that we have the right amount of flour incorporated into this dough. It shouldn't be super, super sticky, but it also shouldn't look dry. We're just kind of doing a little bit of a dance to make sure the dough looks right. Okay, it's just a couple minutes later. Let's check out our dough. It's come together in a ball, it's glossy, it's shiny. This dough doesn't need to be kneaded as long as a traditional bread dough, so this is perfect. So all I'm going to do now is put a little bit of oil in our mixing bowl, run the dough around in it, and leave it to proof. So this will proof until it's doubled in size, probably take 45 minutes or an hour, and I'm actually going to put it in my oven on the proof setting. So I'm going to cover this with a kitchen towel and leave it to proof. I'll see you in like an hour. Next up, we're making some little mini petite lemon rosemary scones. This base scone recipe works for a multitude of different flavors. I like lemon rosemary because it's a little bit bright with the lemon, but also kind of holiday-ish with the rosemary. So I've got some frozen butter on the counter, so I'm gonna start working with this quickly because the key to a good scone is to make sure that you keep it cold. So the method here, pretty easy. Mix the dry ingredients, regular all-purpose flour, sugar, salt, and baking powder. Cut in the butter, mix the wet ingredients, mix them all together. So I'm just taking my hands and running the butter through my hands, trying to get all the flour nicely buttered. It should look kind of like a really dry pea shape. Okay, all of our butter has been rubbed with flour. Time for the wet ingredients. So this is cream, 1 egg, a little bit of vanilla. This recipe is so flexible. You can use all sorts of different extracts. You can use all sorts of different herbs. You can make a savory version of this with like ham and cheese or bacon and cheese or anything and cheese. So I'm gonna give that a quick whisk. And if I'm using an herb, I like to put it in the milk at this point. It infuses the milk with the flavor a little bit, and I find that it kind of has a more even flavor throughout the entire scone of whatever you're flavoring it with. I'm gonna use the juice and the zest from one very sad looking lemon. And then I'm just gonna strip this rosemary from the stem and mince it up really, really small, and I'm only gonna use about a tablespoon. The reason I like this lemon rosemary scone is because it's not like slappy in the face sweet. It strikes a nice balance between sweet and savory to me. And since we've got so many other sweet things like jams and fruit, that cinnamon bread, it's nice to have one thing that's a little bit more ambiguous. And I'd say that's about a tablespoon, so I'm gonna add it all. And then last step, just going to juice our lemon in. Okay, this gets stirred together. So I'm going to mix the wet into the dry. Get in with my hands. Okay, that's come together enough for me. I'm gonna do the rest on the bench. Okay, I'm gonna separate this into 2. And then just press these out with my hands. You don't even need to roll. Just looking for kind of a flat-ish disc. Perfect, so I'm gonna cut each of these just with a butter knife, back of a butter knife, into 8. And onto the baking tray they go. There we go. So I'm gonna cover these with a kitchen towel, put them in the fridge, and we will revisit them tomorrow. In the meantime, our cinnamon pull-apart bread should be just about ready for shaping. Et voila! It's bringing back nicely. Off to the side for a minute because I completely forgot about making the filling, the most important part of our cinnamon pull-apart bread. So this is a combination of softened butter, brown sugar, spices, cinnamon, but I also add cardamom, and I add a little bit of salt. Everything sweet gets a little bit of salt in my kitchen, really just balances things out. What's that you say? My bowl is bigger? Mind your business. Our beautiful dough. I have to separate this into 4 equal pieces, so I'm gonna weigh it to do that. 896. So call it 900 divided by 4, 225. 225. So a little bit of flour on our template. And what I know about rolling things into a ball is that it's easier if you start with something round. So okay, that looks good for me. So on to our resting place. And we do about 1/3 of our filling. And I'm trying to get pretty close to the edge here. A nice even layer. With a little bit of patience, all the way to the edge. Okay, that one looks great. On to number 2. So this final layer, I'm just gonna make sure it's a little bit bigger than the circle because I have a feeling my circles have probably grown a little bit. Looks really nice. Okay, so now it's time to shape our cinnamon cardamom pull-apart bread. The method here is not super complicated. It looks a lot more intimidating than it is. We're gonna make some strategic cuts in the dough and twist it so that some of the cinnamon layers are exposed and it ends up looking like this beautiful snowflake. So the way to do that is to try to find what is the center-ish of your dough with something that's a couple inches, like 2 inches wide. Could be a cookie cutter, could be a glass like I'm using. Okay, so then we're gonna cut this into 16 pieces. Pretend like you're just cutting it in half many times until you end up with 16 different sections. So starting where your glass starts, I just cut in half. This is a super sharp knife. And then across in half again, and I continue that. and 16. So now the way to do this is we're gonna take each section, twist it away, and pinch the ends. And it's hard for me to do this, not from my own perspective, so I'll flip you around. So we take the sections, make sure that they're separated. I'll keep my knife here. Twist away. And pinch the ends. Perfect. We do the same thing all the way around. I can usually get like 1.5 to 2 twists. Last one. Looking pretty nice. All right, so normally this would rest for another rise, but it's going in the fridge for me. So I'm going to cover it tightly with plastic wrap and store it in the fridge, and we're gonna bake it up tomorrow. I'm gonna do a couple other things today, cook some bacon and sausage, plan out my charcuterie board, but otherwise, tomorrow morning, it's just pop some things in the oven, arrange some things on a brunch charcuterie board, and pop the bubbly. I can't wait. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. It is the next day, and I'm ready to pop some things in the oven. So this is our snowflake bread, looking delicious. It's risen a little bit in the fridge overnight. This is gonna hang out until our scones are cooked. Scones here, looking delightful. I test baked a couple of them last night. I think they're gonna take like 16 to 17 minutes on 400, so my oven is preheated. And then we're gonna bump the oven down to 350 and cook our snowflake bread. The first thing we have to do with our scones though is give them a little bit of a cream wash with a little bit of sugar on top. Cream on, and then because the oven is really hot, it's 400 degrees, I'm gonna do my best just to get sugar on the top of them and not too much on the cookie sheet so that it doesn't burn. So I thought a lot about which order I would cook our baked goods in this morning since they have 2 different temperatures. And I would like to have the cinnamon bread be the thing that is warm. These scones do pretty well room temperature, so they don't need to be eaten warm out of the oven. They're delicious that way. But I think the cinnamon pull-apart bread will be better with it if it's slightly warm. So I'm gonna try to time the cinnamon pull-apart bread coming out of the oven just a few minutes before people arrive and we wanna sit down to eat. Into a preheated 400 degree Fahrenheit oven, I'm going to set a timer for 16 minutes, and what I'm looking for is for them to puff up a little bit and turn a nice light golden brown. Look delightful. You can see how where the sugar and the cream hit the silpat, it got a little dark. That's why I didn't go crazy with the sugar. So I'm just gonna transfer these to a rack and cool them, and then we'll get going on our snowflake bread. Oven is down to 350. In goes the snowflake cinnamon cardamom bread. So this goes in for probably 24 to 30 minutes, but I'm gonna check it at 15. And now for the fun part, we assemble. So this giant charcuterie board is what we are building our brunch charcuterie on. And I have a plate for a placeholder for our cinnamon pull-apart bread. It's gonna cool for like 10 minutes after it comes out of the oven on a rack, and then it's gonna go on the charcuterie tray warm. A little overview of the brunch charcuterie grazing board that I'm making. Proteins: Greek yogurt, hard-boiled eggs, sausage and bacon, and some cheese. Fruit: cherries, blueberries, mango, kiwi, strawberries, maybe some orange slices. Toppings: pickled onions, olives. On the sweet side, hot honey, that is homemade. Pickled onions are also homemade. Yuzu miso, which is a sweet kind of umami topping. Raspberry jam. Some cashews, and then toppings for the yogurt, a little bit of granola, some crackers, and our scones. And then of course we have the placeholder for our cinnamon bread. So when I make a charcuterie grazing board, I try to have a good selection of things throughout. So I like to scatter the toppings, and I just mostly leave the toppings in their containers. I could decant them into any one of 100 little white dishes that I have over here, but I'm gonna leave them in their containers. And then from there, I just kind of play and rearrange things until I like the way that it looks. Quick pause to deal with our cinnamon bread. So the recipe I'm following, which will be included in the description box below, says at 15 minutes, pull the bread out, scoop whatever has run out of it back into the bread, and then it goes in for another 15 minutes. I'm gonna check it every 5 minutes or so and probably rotate it along the way. Okay, back to our grazing board. So let's see. Cheese maybe in front there. And there we have it, our cinnamon pull-apart bread on one end, and I have sausage bacon staged over at this end as well, because I have a vegetarian in the mix. And then scattered throughout are hard-boiled eggs, all sorts of different types of fruit, cashews, bourbon vanilla whipped cream, yuzu miso, raspberry jam, some homemade hot honey. The yogurt bar side is a little bit of granola, some yogurt, olives, cheeses, crackers, cherries, homemade scones. All in all, this is a pretty easy brunch. I mean, we did home make a couple things. A lot of this was store-bought. And then really the most lift is the assembly and trying to make it look pretty. And that's honestly the most fun part. I have like 5 minutes before my guests arrive, so it's time to pop some champagne and celebrate the holidays. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you here next time, and happy holidays!